I was never insecure about my height ever until dating apps. They're not in any way designed for people to meet. They're designed to keep you on the app.
Can I push back a little bit? Similar to like LinkedIn, isn't that the same thing where they're just trying to stand out?
What apps do is they force everyone to be this permanent on-stage self, which is exhausting. The swipeability, the objectification of people is killing any chance for romantic connection. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of That Resonates. I am Dr. Christian Perrin. With me today, I have a dear friend of mine, Jochem, and we're going to talk about dating, traditional ideas of dating and contemporary forms of dating. And I suppose we're going to try to address whether or not dating has completely changed for the better or for worse. And I'm going to attempt to infuse some psychological wisdom into the discussion. So Jochem is a professor of English. He is multilingual. You speak Dutch, English, French, Spanish, a bit of German.
I can understand German.
Right, which is to me like a total superpower. It's incredible. And I've always thought of you as an expert in linguistics and discourse and language, which is, of course, your profession. And I think one of the motivations or one of the bits of interest that we had in this podcast was to bring language and your expertise in discourse into how people present themselves on social media and on dating sites, and how people use language to kind of market themselves on dating sites. I find that really interesting, so we'll talk about that a little bit. But I guess we're going to have a broad discussion about how dating has changed across the past 20 years. But before we get into that, it's great to see you. It's great to sit down with you and spend some time discussing this in a more official way, right? And I've not really caught up with you properly for a while. So the first thing I wanted to ask you was, what's been your best bit, worst bit of the week? It's Friday. What was your best bit, worst bit of this week?
The best bit is seeing you here right now, catching up.
Okay.
Because I always look forward to our conversations, and I think this is part of the reason why I'm here.
My best bit of the week was probably, I went to a new coffee spot in Jumeirah, Auto. This is free sponsorship for Auto Coffee. And I'd not been there before. Incredible place, really serene, peaceful. Coffee was amazing. We got to go there sometime. So I had a really lovely little time to myself, which I tried to do. And the worst bit, toothache. Still going through dental issues. I had toothache and you just can't escape from it. So it's not been a bad week, a pretty good week. You look fantastic, by the way. You've outsmarted me today.
You look fantastic. But you look like, what's his name? Brad Pitt.
So Jochem knows full well that I've bought this outfit intentionally to copy Brad Pitt's outfit in F1. I never do that. I never try and replicate celebrities. I'm like a pound shop Brad Pitt. If Brad Pitt was on discount.
You're an improved version of Brad Pitt.
I appreciate it. Would this be an appropriate outfit for me to take a picture of me somewhere and stick it on my dating profile?
I think that would be an excellent outfit, really.
Yeah?
Yeah, you don't want anything too formal. Maybe one picture in that so people know that you can be formal as well.
Okay.
But I think this is the ideal outfit, isn't it?
Well, isn't this interesting that we're even discussing this now? And this is a thing in contemporary dating circles, right? Now, would I upload a picture of me doing a mirror selfie in this outfit? Or does it need to be, from a distance? What sort of image would I put on?
I'd probably avoid any mirror selfies or any selfies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
Doesn't come across as genuine. Maybe you want a more candid camera kind of situation where a friend of yours takes a picture where you're having coffee, so you can show your potential matches that you like coffee.
Okay.
Or you do something that you're passionate about. Maybe a picture of you doing a podcast. Maybe a picture of you playing paddle, pickleball, whatever it is.
Has dating changed? Has dating changed since, 10, 15 years ago? I'm 37, you're 33. Everyone in the audience now is going to be like, oh, no way. He can't possibly be 37. I'm kind of like way pre-dating sites. I met my first loves and had my first romances before social media, before Tinder. And it feels like things have drastically changed. I learned recently that Tinder was invented by a chap whose name I can't remember, because apparently he was in the shower and the bathroom steamed up and he forgot, he's in California, so usually have these extractor fans. He forgot to put the fan on. The mirror steamed up. He went to wipe the mirror, and then it steamed up again, and he wiped the mirror again, and then he had this light bulb idea. Each time he was swiping, he was revealing a picture of himself. And that's where the idea of swiping and Tinder comes from. 2012, Tinder was created. That for me alone is interesting because it signifies that the idea started with a malfunction, right? The idea started with something that went wrong, something traditionally that worked that, you know, it was not available or went wrong. And then this idea of swiping to clear something, swiping to get rid of something unwanted. That's where it came along, right? So I think that's huge for me. So swiping, it's at its very kind of initiation phase was about getting rid of something undesirable. I think that's such a message for the problems I'm going to argue exist surrounding contemporary dating sites now. But anyway, with that, and I don't know, commenting on your own perspective, do you think dating has changed, you know, in a way that's irreversible?
I don't think it's all negative. You like to start from that perspective, right? Where you're like, yeah, see, something was wrong, so they wanted to change that. I don't necessarily. I think we are more interconnected now as a people, and I think the world's globalized, and we're more online now, so it's just a natural consequence. I think, not necessarily a good one. I don't think I'm against dating apps completely. I do think there are some pitfalls, and I do think offline is still preferred. But I do see why someone would want to use dating apps, especially if they're busy. And
My initial critique is that I miss the kind of idea of going to a coffee shop, a bar, or, you know, a social space and meeting someone in that organic way. You know, that seems to have gone now. And I think something about interaction in those spaces has changed because there's like a bi-directional relationship with dating apps and traditional forms of meeting someone, in that no one's going out and they've got their heads up anymore looking to meet you. It feels like people are on preordained dates, or they're at the bar, at the coffee shop with their head in the phone. That traditional way of meeting people has become a bit less available. And you almost look weird now. I think if you approach somebody in a bar or a coffee, you know, people are nervous, and you know, it looks strange if you do that now.
have you tried it recently?
No. So maybe
Do you think it's an?
but I'm scared to.
Yeah,
I would be scared to.
yeah.
You know.
I think you might be surprised that people might seem closed off, but everyone's, they're busy with their own lives. If they're in a coffee shop, they're probably working on something. If they're at the gym, they're there to work out.
Yeah.
You might be surprised that people are more open to being approached than you might think.
Yeah, maybe it's in my head and maybe it's in people's heads, but even that signifies a change, doesn't it? I mean, I'm not saying I was ever comfortable going up to somebody, a stranger. That's just not comfortable. It's not a comfortable thing to do, but that's kind of the point, isn't it? Right? I think, though, that there is something about rejection resilience that's changed. I think because of dating apps and because of the kind of fake sense of security and safety that you have on social media and dating sites where you're in the comfort of your own home swiping away. You know, you've swiped 300 times on the toilet before breakfast, you know, whereas you would usually or traditionally go up to one person in a place that you see from across the room and you have a crush on them, and you would have that, you know, maybe initial spark that invites you over, and there's nervousness, but there's something very authentic about it. So I think, I don't know, this has kind of changed. And one thing that's changed is that because you're swiping so much, maybe people aren't building resilience to rejection, because you get rejected or someone stops chatting to you on Bumble. Well, then you just move on to the next one and then the next one. So you're not really sitting with the discomfort of rejection. Whereas you go up to someone in a coffee shop, a bar, or whatever, and they just say, "I'm not interested." That probably hurts more. But then you recalibrate and you deal with it. You overcome the disappointment, the rejection, the failure, and you go again, right?
Do you think that's an important part in someone's development, that they have to experience this type of rejection to become who they're supposed to be?
I do, yeah. Not just in dating, but in life in general. I think that in life we will all experience failure, you know, and rejection. It is par for the course. It's writ large into the human condition. You have to fail, and you have to be rejected. And I think it's important because good self-esteem is about recovery. It's about recovering from rejection, recovering from failure, and still being okay. And, a solid sense of self-worth and self-value comes from within. It doesn't rely on external validations of who you are. So I think if you can be rejected or you can fail a few times and still know within that it doesn't deplete your value as a human, that it's just, it's the human condition, then it creates resilience, I think.
So the type of rejection that you face, or you might not face this type of rejection often, I don't know. Yeah, but when you're swiping and you don't get the match, for example, isn't that a type of rejection as well? And how is that different
Yeah.
from approaching someone?
That's a great question. It is a type of rejection, but it's passive, isn't it? You don't know full well that the person that you've swiped right on and didn't swipe you has rejected you. You just didn't match. So it's a form of passive rejection, maybe. And I think apps have been designed for that reason. It minimizes that feeling of hurt and rejection, so that you stay on the app and you're greeted with more and more possibilities. So I'd argue it's different. It's not. Whereas if you go up to someone face to face and you take your shot, you take that risk, and they say, I'm sorry, I'm not interested, or I'm with somebody else, or whatever. I think that pangs a lot more, because there's no hiding, and there's nothing else you can, kind of blame the situation on. Or maybe the person's filters didn't include me, or maybe they just don't use. But maybe they're not active on Bumble. There's external reasons you can point to for the rejection.
But what about ghosting, for example? So say you matched with someone, you're having a great chat, you think things are going well. Maybe you went on a date, maybe you didn't even go on a date, and the person just disappears. Isn't that a type of rejection as well, and one that can really
Yeah.
sting?
Yeah, and I think that hurts people because I think that becomes more active. That's no longer passive, right? Because you went on a date, you built a relationship to some degree, and despite their experience of you, they've chosen to check out now. So that's arguably maybe even more hurtful, isn't it?
Mm.
How many times has it happened to you?
Never.
Yeah, sure. My friend had this experience where, he went on like 3 or 4 days and like really built a relationship with someone, and then, got ghosted. And yeah, and that probably wouldn't happen in traditional dating scenes, maybe, right?
Do you think that's linked to this paradox of choice?
Dating app designers know full well about the choice paradox in psychology, and they use it to keep you locked into the dating app. And the paradox of choice is very simple. The more choice you have, the more paralyzed you feel making a decision. But also, when you make a decision, you're less satisfied with the decision that you make. And that's fundamental. The first landmark study, I think, was on jam in a supermarket. I'm going to butcher the study, but take 100 participants and you send them to a supermarket with 2 options for jam. You got one type of strawberry jam and another type of strawberry jam. And then you survey their satisfaction with the jam. And then you take another 100 participants and you take them to a supermarket that has like 50 jams. You got blackberry, sweet strawberry, less sweet strawberry, organic strawberry, marmalades, whatever. You've got 50 jams. And then you take the satisfaction survey. The satisfaction drops massively. But also, importantly, customers tend to report feeling happy about the choice. So they think that they're happy to have choice, but they're always less satisfied when they make a decision. And therein lies why I think people are addicted to, or they can get addicted to dating apps. Because they think, oh, I've got so much choice here, this is great, I'm in the market, but they're not really satisfied with it.
Is that because you have the agency and you have the responsibility? So when I think it was a TED talk by Barry Schwartz or something, quite popular, about the paradox of choice, where he went to buy jeans, and back in the day you only had a few options. You had the size of your jeans, and that's maybe you had 2 options, and you'd buy the jeans, and the pair of jeans was bad. It's the jeans' fault, it is a bad pair of jeans,
Mm.
but you would wear it. But then if you go now, we have slim fit, regular fit, tapered, boot cut, you name it. Yeah, and all the different colors. And so then you have to choose one. And then when you make a choice, now you're responsible because there's so many options. So the one you choose now, if you don't like it, it's your fault, and it's no longer the pair of jeans.
Yeah, you bring in an important word there, which is about responsibility. You know, when you have more choice, I think the responsibility to make the right decision is compounded, right? And you feel a bit more stark, you know, in the fate of your decision, right? I'm more likely to make a wrong decision now, pursuant to the fact that there's more choice. If cameraman, can you help me? I'm going to demonstrate something here on the coffee table. You know, if I hand you, pick a card.
I love that. I can show the camera.
Yeah, tell me what card you have.
I have to tell you.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's three of hearts.
3 of hearts. How do you feel about that card?
I love the number 3. I love hearts. I feel great.
Okay, pick another card.
All right, it's 9 of hearts.
Okay, how do you feel about the 3 of hearts now?
Well, I prefer 3 to 9. So
Okay, you like the number still.
yeah,
Has your perception of 3 in any way altered now that you've got the 9 of hearts to look at?
not really, not quite yet.
Pick another one.
Well, let me pick that one. It's a joker. No, it's it's a joker.
Okay, but these are Birkenstock cards, by the way. I bought some Birkenstocks yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that. I don't want to say anything.
And they gave me a free pack of cards. One more card.
Let me make it easy. Yeah, I don't know what the name is in English. What's that?
That's a jack of clubs.
Clubs.
So now that you've got 4 cards, how does the 3 appear to you?
Yeah, it's more difficult now, isn't it?
Okay, what's
Yeah.
changed?
It's more choice, and now I'm like, well, I really like that one as well.
You like the jack of spades now?
Yeah, I do really like that one.
Now, if I give you all the cards, right, and you get to pick which one you want to keep forever, you know, would it be the 3 of hearts?
No.
Right, okay. So what's going on is that the satisfaction that you had with your initial card is being eroded by the presentation of more choice, right? You've got more options, so your satisfaction is dwindling, but also your evaluation and your valuation of the initial card is also changing. So, you know, you value the original card in a way, you know, you like the number 3 and, you know, whatever, it's red, hearts.
And it's funny, it would have been one of my, if I could choose, that one would probably be in the top 5. I would have been very happy with that. If that was my only choice, I would have been very happy. But if you give me the entire bundle of cards, well, I'd probably choose a number 7 because that's my favorite.
Right.
And then maybe 7 hearts, for example.
Yeah, so, you know, what's happening is with more options, your satisfaction dwindles. But in psychology, we call this the contrast principle. Humans weigh up the proposition of a particular thing based on what it's contrasted to. And it's a shortcut. It's a cognitive shortcut. You know, you make what we call a heuristic shortcut, fancy way of saying, again, you know, a quick decision when you've got so much stimuli to deal with. So on its own, because it's not contrasted to anything, the 3 of hearts is fine. You introduce more things to contrast it with, and its value to you changes, and that's the fundamental thing. When you're swiping on dating apps, you match with one person, and what most people do is they'll get a match, they'll feel a dopamine hit for a moment. Oh, this hot, you know, girl or boy likes me. They think I'm attractive. I feel good. You take the ego, tokens. You feel good for a moment, and then you do it again, you know, because you want to feed the ego and collect more ego tokens. Whereas if you didn't have the opportunity, you would then commit a bit more and you would lean into that interaction.
So is the whole gamification, is that the problem with the dating apps?
I think so.
The dopamine hits, the cheap dopamine
Yeah,
hits.
you know, like I won something. Great, something's happened. I'll do it again. That felt good. That felt good. That felt good. And then it's no surprise that conversations dwindle quickly. Hey, how are you? Hi. What do you do? I'm a psychologist. Oh, that's so interesting. Analyze me. You know. Okay. What do you do? I'm in finance. Next. Right. So I think this is about abundance, right? We have an abundance of choice, and there's a lot going on psychologically to minimize someone's chances of meeting someone on dating apps. And I have a sneaky suspicion that they're not in any way designed for people to meet. They're designed to keep you on the app. The gamification, the constant abundance, the contrast, the availability keeps you on the app. It keeps you swiping.
Well, there's that, of course. They're businesses, so they're trying to make money. They're not going to make money if you leave the
Right.
app. So they
Exactly.
need subscriptions.
Exactly.
So that's always good to keep in mind. I wanted to ask you about the whole gamification thing. Do you think people are genuinely looking for genuine connections and actual relationships, but kind of get lost because of the dopamine hits and the way dating apps are designed? Or do you think they might not be aware what they're really looking for?
Yeah. I Good question. And I ultimately don't know, but I think that there's something conscious and something subconscious going on at the same time. I think maybe consciously people think that they're looking for someone genuine and they're looking to settle down, or they're looking to meet their partner. But subconsciously, they're looking for that dopamine hit. They're looking to be liked. They're looking to be worthy. They're looking for external validation of how they look. They're looking to be admired. We all want to be admired. There's a song by Stone Roses, "I Want to Be Adored." Everybody wants to be adored, and so I think that these apps are allowing people to achieve that, but they're not really allowing people to pursue a meaningful, romantic, intimate, collaborative relationship.
Do you think the brain knows a difference between, like, a person might know, or maybe, well, you have something to say about this as well, like using filters, face app, or AI to enhance the way you look. Um, Surely they know that it's not a real image of who they are. So, but the dopamine is very real, isn't it? So does the brain know the difference?
The brain probably doesn't know the difference. And this is where consciously thinking about your behavior and trying to kind of ponder what's good for me, what's good for the psyche here is so important. And probably why, if somebody's addicted to these things, speaking to a psychologist is important. In terms of the filters that you mentioned, we've had a lot of conversations about this. One thing that kind of terrifies me about this is, again, a friend, genuinely, someone I used to work with was really hooked on dating sites, and he used to change his body using Facetuner. We know people do this, and I used to change his face and give himself a more chiseled jawline and all the rest of it. And we spoke about it, and I obviously had to deal with it delicately. But what occurred to me is he must know, or he must think that he is undesirable. He must think that he's undesirable, and have reconciled in his head that he needs to change his face and change his body to pitch himself in a market that in his current form does not accept him. And he's changing the way he looks. And there's a lot to do. You've got to download the app, Facetuner, and you've got to mess around for a while to make yourself more desirable to an unknown set of criteria, and then put yourself out there. And that's pretty wild to me. And that's really sad, because the subconscious work there is that this person must be aware on some level that they think they're not good enough and they're altering themselves to be good enough. Um,
Can I push back a little bit? I think it might be true. Maybe deep down they feel like they're not good enough. But isn't it always also the case, similar to like LinkedIn, you have to stand out. You have to
right.
act like you're someone you maybe know. Maybe it is you, but you use certain keywords to make it sound like you're more than, or your job is, you're doing more than you really do, for example.
Yeah.
Isn't that the same thing where they're just trying to stand out in a market that's there's so much competition, so you have to compete with all of these people, and you're trying to stand out and maybe just get a foot in the door. Isn't that what they're trying to do rather than?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. But there's still a distance between what they perceive the market to accept and how acceptable they think they are compared to that market, right? So that there's still some decision making going on that I need to change this in order to stand out, right? I am not naturally where I need to be to stand out, so I need to alter it to give myself a better chance of success. See what I mean?
Mm.
And I find that really sad, and I'm not judging anybody who does that. I'm genuinely not judging it, but it must be very uncomfortable to be in a position. I mean, again, I'm not 6 foot. I'm aware of my own, imperfections. I'm not in any way saying that I wouldn't be lured by the idea of making myself look beautiful, using these apps, right? But I think you almost have to resist and push back and be yourself as much as possible. But I think it's just sad that someone must know on some level that they don't quite meet this criteria, and they choose to falsify it to step up.
Can I ask you a sneaky question?
Yeah, go on.
Did you ever add any inches to your profile?
No,
Okay.
I never did, honestly.
But you must have been aware that maybe women are filtering for, and if you would meet them, maybe they wouldn't even care, but they are filtering for it. So
You know what? I was never insecure about my height ever
until
dating apps, right? And no one ever asked me. I didn't know what my height was. Genuine. I never knew what my height was, right? I'm 5'11", by the way. I'm so close. We're so close. Right. Damn genetics. So I never cared about it, and I never was bothered by it. But of course you put it on your dating profile. It's a thing, and people search for it. And there's this kind of criteria that you got to be at least 6 foot to be desirable. So I'm not insecure about it now, but I'm aware of it. But I wouldn't lie, because then what do? I turn up, with heels on. I have to take them off. And I wonder what people do when they catfish. And there's examples of people just putting basically different faces on the profile. Like, how does that conversation go when you actually meet up? And it's dishonest. And then the person who meets up with the person who's catfishing feels bad because they feel superficial. But really, they've kind of been lied to. I don't know. And these are just contemporary issues that we would never have dealt with back in the day. So I feel like something about all of this is really ruining intimacy and connection. And the reality, we've spoken about this, if you met some of these people in person spontaneously that you would swipe left on, you might really hit it off and like them. But, the swipeability, the objectification of people, is killing any chance for romantic connection.
falling in love and genuine connections and relationships, the dating apps, we treat them like we're shopping, right? There's filters and I want this and that, and people can lie on them. So how genuine is it really? But is that what a real connection is? Is that how you fall in love? Or is it more to do with seeing the person, having a genuine, how does a genuine connection work as a psychologist? Maybe you feel like,
Yeah.
can you explain that better?
Well, I think that, what happens in a genuine connection is, you meet, I don't know, spontaneously somewhere. I keep saying a bar, which sounds like I have a problem. A coffee shop, the supermarket, whatever. And there's that initial nervousness, but you feel something that invites you to make an approach, maybe, and you start to talk, and you exchange numbers, and you go on a date. I mean, when I was first dating, we didn't call it dating. I don't know if you did in Belgium. We didn't really. This is a very American idea, an American term. You would meet up, you would hang out, and you would get to know each other. It was implicit. It was just kind of implicit if you got on, and I suppose we could call them values. But you never went out with someone and said, "What's your values? What are your values?" You know, what you wouldn't even say, "What are your interests? What interests you?" Now you put it on a profile. What your values, what are your interests? I like podcasts, deep chats, and matcha. Great. And it feels very deliberate now. I would argue that it never was. It was very implicit, and I don't even think I can communicate to you what it used to be like because it was so implicit. Does that make sense? You just kind of, the people I met and became in a relationship with, it just kind of happens naturally, or it doesn't happen naturally. You just realize, oh, I didn't like the way that she said that, or I didn't like the way that she was in the restaurant to the waiting staff, or something either draws you in and closes the gap, and you become intimate together in a multitude of senses, or it doesn't happen. But now it feels very explicit and very,
So what's the alternative?
well, this is where I'm going to put you in a hot seat a bit more. Regarding all of that and how people express themselves on dating apps, and as an expert in language, how do you think we can use dating apps, humans can use them, in maybe a more authentic and responsible way to encourage genuine connection? And specifically, can you tell me about the way that people use language to highlight themselves and what they can do differently to invite genuine connection?
Yeah. So, well, it's hard because you want to stand out from the start, and you can't replace offline conversations, can you? So, you'd want to move out of the dating app as quickly as possible, I think. Maybe you want to establish that you have some things in common and, it's not a total disaster. But then you want to go on a date as quickly as possible. It doesn't have to be a very expensive fine dining experience, anything like that. But just meet up for a coffee or matcha or whatever. But to stand out, yeah, you'd have to do something. But come across as fun. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
Who is this person
Yeah.
that I'm seeing? And you don't use negative words. Okay, I know that you don't want this and that and that and that. But you don't have to list them all on your profile, surely. You can do that once you have a match, for example. You can have a conversation and find out, okay, well, that person is not for me. But does that all have to go into your profile? It shows me that you're
Yeah.
a negative person. And maybe I'm not inclined to talk to you now and feel like, oh, we're going to have a great match here.
You mean when people put like rules on at the start?
Yeah.
Give me examples.
Don't swipe right on me if you're under 6 foot, for example, or
Yeah, like swipe left if you're, I don't know, not into podcasts. Swipe left if you're
if you're not ready for a committed
yeah, right.
relationship.
Consistency is always talked about.
Consistency.
I think obviously it's gendered. It feels like women seem to put, they want consistency and sort of reliability and stuff on the profile. I'm not
Which
sure
is
what.
fair, but is that
Yeah.
something? I mean, a guy is always going to be on his best behavior, and I think, from the start, and then might dwindle after a while. So how authentic is that? You can ask or filter for it, but is that really going to work?
I mean, a lot of guys, I see clients that are using dating apps a lot and they're really desperate to meet someone. And I end up, because they invite me to, having a look at the profile. And it's a bit weird because I'm not a dating coach, I'm not Hitch. But I suppose my input can be, does this speak to who you are? And based on this, are you going to attract people that you're going to align with? And it's remarkable what I see. Remarkable. I'm like, first thing is always the picture. I'm like, that doesn't look like you. That just doesn't look like you at all. I don't say that. I try to communicate, well, does this communicate authenticity? Does this look like genuinely how you are and act with your friends, And then some of the things that people claim about themselves. I love philosophy. Do you? We've been seeing each other for 5 weeks. We haven't had a single philosophical conversation, and I love philosophy. Oh no, I just kind of put that because you have limited options. I'm like, wow, okay. So the app has already narrowed you in options. You can either say that you love skiing, reading, philosophy, or coffee, or the gym, right? It strikes me that the language that people end up using to describe themselves doesn't really match what they're like, right?
No, and they'll use AI to write a bio for them, which is striking. Like, you don't know yourself well enough to write 3 sentences or 2 sentences about yourself, something catchy, something fun. No, you need AI for that.
Right.
It's a little bit pathetic, maybe.
Yeah. You can see the ChatGPT, profiles kind of are way off, I guess.
When you're in our line of work, you notice
Right.
very quickly. Yeah.
Okay. So what would attract you to, or your friend? What do you think would attract someone to a dating profile? It doesn't have to be I mean, what would attract a woman to a man's profile, do you think? What should a man express about themselves on a profile?
Be who you are. Show them what your hobbies are rather than write them. Like, if I'd make a profile, I like to play tennis, for example. I'll put a picture in there where I'm playing tennis, so you can see that that's something I actually do, and not something that I put on there because I want to match with people that play tennis, for
Okay.
example. So some genuine pictures and they need to support who you are. Some guys they're amazing guys, but then they undersell themselves, where it's like a picture that was taken 5 years ago with their mates in a bar or something.
I feel attacked.
Not talking about you. I don't even know what your profile's like, if you have a profile. Yeah, don't sell yourself short either, but don't use all the filters. And I mean, it's okay to use a filter if you just want to enhance a little bit, but don't change the way the form of your face or the shape of your face or your body. Why would you do that? That's a rough start then.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
you start off very inauthentic.
Yeah, and you start off with a lie.
Yeah.
It's akin to lying. And again, I'm not
Oh,
being
yeah.
moralistic or judgmental, but it's a form of deception, isn't it?
Mm.
So what you're saying is align your photos with the interest that you claim to have on your profile, because that amounts to authenticity. And if you express genuineness and alignment, then you'll
Yeah.
invite that back.
Yeah. And maybe, you can enhance your profile like you do on LinkedIn to get more matches, but they're not going to be genuine matches. They're not going to be connections that you really want to pursue. So the more authentic you are, hopefully, the better your matches will be, and then you might hit it off. When you meet offline.
And I suppose this is the thing about swipeability, is that people are primarily looking at attractiveness. I've met men who tell me that they read the profiles and they really pay it. I'm like, I'm not sure. The data doesn't match what you're saying. I mean, maybe there are men and women who do that, but the data suggests that people are swiping thousands of times, So you're not critically analyzing the profile. People are swiping on attractiveness. And if you do that, then you're going to end up with a bunch of matches, most probably, that aren't aligned to who you are, really. But
I'd also argue that's a very bad strategy, because they use algorithms, don't they? And they'll put you in some sort of bucket.
Right.
Depending on how much you swipe, and then how many of those swipes are actual matches, kind of like a bucket of desirability. And
Yeah.
I don't think you would like to. Yeah, I don't think anyone wants to see that data, right? But it does happen. So you don't want to swipe right on everyone. Oh,
Yeah.
she's cute. Yeah. Maybe read the profile and then be a bit more selective, because then you will be in a more desirable bucket as well.
More about kind of pieces of language. Can we come back to the bio? One thing that you mentioned is people on dating sites seem to consistently want to express three things: that they are fit and healthy in some way, that they're intelligent, and they're fun and a bit spontaneous. So a typical bio is going to be like, adore running and tennis, love philosophical chats and podcasts, and swipe left if you don't want to, if you chew with your mouth open or something a bit edgy, right? And this consistent thing seems to be really homogenizing everyone's dating profile. Do you know what I mean? There's just sameness. Like people kind of deliberately or otherwise follow the structure. Something that indicates I'm fit, something that indicates I'm intelligent and a good critical thinker, and something that indicates that I'm fun and spontaneous and a bit quirky. Why does that happen?
I should ask you that question, I think. I think it's kind of human nature, but I'm not sure whether this is really the case. I think the more attractive you are, the less you might put on that as well. You're a bit more mysterious in a way, or you can't be bothered, or you want to act cool, so you don't add to you don't add a lot of information. You don't adhere to that. And maybe when you're a bit more serious, then you will add more information. Prompts, I guess, is what they use to try and get the conversation flowing, something to talk about. But those three are good starting points, I guess. But when everyone adheres to them, if that's not you, like, you don't have to pretend. If you're not into fitness, say that, and maybe attract people that, or unless it's important. But it can't be important to you if you're not embodying it. If you're not, you're not going to the gym, or you're not doing Pilates, or you're not playing tennis or playing football, then maybe why put it on there?
If I was on a dating app, I'd be terrified of saying, like, I don't like cats, because it just makes you look like a serial killer or something. And everyone seems to love cats. So I myself, or matcha, I couldn't say I hate matcha. It tastes like soil.
I know you would. You know your personality, and
this
would be something that you would say. And it does taste like grass.
I don't get it. And people are cultishly obsessed with it. They go to, they check out. I mean, whatever. I love coffee.
But it's like coffee.
Yeah.
A lot of people say they like coffee, but they add milk and sugar and
They don't really
other flavors. Same with matcha. They add strawberry something. I don't even know what they add to the matcha. But it's usually not just matcha, is it?
No, there's always something to make it taste not like soil. Anyway, right, okay. We need to kind of summarize and make some serious points about dating and things. We need to be useful for people. So one thing that you've raised is,
Take it offline if you can.
yeah,
Approach people. Learn to deal with rejection. I don't think it's done and over with. That you can still approach someone at the gym. You can still, don't be a creep, but yeah, but you can. And dating apps, use it wisely. Be authentic. Don't pretend to be someone you're not. Be aware that they're businesses. They're trying to make money. Don't swipe too much.
mm,
Yeah. The
mm,
fewer matches, the better, because then you can pursue them. So be more selective.
mm,
You can't talk to 20 matches. How are you going to talk to 20 people? You can't. You have a life.
yeah,
Otherwise, you're going to be stuck on the app forever.
yeah, which is what
It
they
becomes a
want.
game.
Yeah. Do you think that going back to traditional ideas of dating, do you think it's over? Do you think you need to be on a dating app now to meet someone?
I actually think we might return to offline dating. I think,
Analog dating.
yeah, I see that happening. Maybe not the younger, well, maybe even Gen Z. I'm not too sure, but I think we might go full circle.
Mm.
And we will rely again on friends and family to find someone for us, or meet someone offline, or go to like there's so many events that are being organized where you go to a coffee shop and you have like you go there to date, speed dating, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe there'll come a point where people get tired of these apps not really working in the way that they should, and we go back, you know. I hope so. I would love to see like all of these apps gone. I really would. I don't judge anybody for using them. People come into therapy, you know, I work with clients who are trying to find a meaningful relationship and we work with it. But I think that they force people into inauthentic portrayals of themselves. You know, one of my favorite sociologists, Irving Goffman, came up with this idea of on stage, off stage. The story goes that his sister Frances was an actress and he would watch how she would be just this incredible performer on stage, but then would just be his sister Frances off stage. And he wrote a book called The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life in 1959 and ran with this metaphorical idea that life is like, you know, the theatre, that you're an onstage self, a marketable, acceptable version of you in front of an audience, and then you're an offstage self, which is more, you know, where you drop the act. And I think what apps do is they force everyone to be this permanent onstage self, which is exhausting, right? So maybe we should be more bravely ourselves. Yeah. So on the apps,
Mhm.
I hate matcha. I find paddle boring, and people go on about it. I find it dull. Although I'm switching into saying things that I don't like, I suppose.
You don't want to be into negative.
I can be a
What
little
do
bit.
you love that is
Yeah.
exceptional? Maybe
What do I love? I need to think about the music.
you're
Story.
passionate about music.
Yeah.
Passionate about philosophy, really.
Yeah.
Not like, as you mentioned, some people might say they're into deep chats, not even
Right.
philosophy, but you are really
No,
into
and
philosophy.
if someone said to me, "I'm interested in deep chats," I'm gonna reply saying like, "Let's talk about the, you know, the breakdown of civilization post, you know, neoliberal modernity,"
Yeah,
and they're
there you
gonna be
go.
like, "Oh my God, delete, delete, get rid of it." From a psychological point of view, I would say that dating apps are keeping people on the app. They are advertising platforms, and they are not designed. And this is not too conspiratorial. I don't want to end up in any legal trouble. I'm not going to name any apps, but I think they're designed to keep people on the app. So be aware of that. They keep you on it through two psychological forces. The principle of contrast. It gets you to contrast and, you know, all the people that you swipe with the last person, with the next person. And you keep trying to gamify all of it to collect ego tokens, because if you match with someone more beautiful, then you're more worthy, right? And it does that through abundance and choice. It locks you into choice paralysis. Just like if you're in the supermarket looking at a million different types of bread, you're going to be overwhelmed and you're going to be dissatisfied with your choice, right? So be aware of that and be authentic is what we're saying as much as possible. You know, do your pictures look like you? Do they express what you are like? Do the activities that you say you enjoy, do you actually enjoy them? Or are you saying it to try and impress people? If you're doing that, it's going to send you down the wrong path, right? And finally, maybe try traditional methods of meeting people. Take a risk. Feel the nervousness, the discomfort of approaching someone that you fancy in a coffee shop. and just say, "Hi, I've got a crush on you. Is it okay to say hello? Is it okay to talk for the moment?" If they say, "No, get away from me, you creep," all right, swallow your pride and go again. And that's about building resilience to rejection. I advise everyone, take a risk. Obviously, be respectful, and don't be a creep. But take a risk. What do you think?
Solid advice. Can you also maybe clarify what it means not to be a creep?
Not being entitled, not presuming that someone's got to respond to you, not encroaching on boundaries, hopefully waiting for some social inference or some social cue to approach somebody. I think approaching anybody in the gym is an absolute no-no. I don't think you can ever do that. I don't know it's already a vulnerable place to be. And I think especially women have a lot to deal with already, in terms of, men abusing power. So I think there's some context where you just shouldn't approach someone. And yeah, but I guess being gentle in the approach, like, hey, I don't even know. I don't know. You seem really nice. I'd love to talk to you, for a while. Would you mind if I sit down? And is that such? They can say no, and then
Yeah.
when they say no, get out of the way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe we should try. Maybe we should try and be more vulnerable.
Yeah.
I mean, the thought of doing that terrifies me, and I'm a psychologist. But I think it's okay to be afraid. Feel the fear and do it anyway, and take the rejection.
Solid advice. Couldn't agree more.
All right, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, always.
All right,
Love chatting to you.
let's go to the coffee shop.
Yeah. Let's have some matcha.